Don't worry, I'm not a chef in this kitchen. So integration.
This is some points.
Just do an ask him check.
Oh, that's good. Saying that it was how.
I think.
Better.
Not better. So this is a good experience of where the technical people say it's all good and the users go, really not.
Is the audio Yeah, cool.
Meet the spec.
Okay.
All right, so how's that? Are we good and going now? All right, I think we're, yes, excellent. That's perfect. Sorry, where were we? All right, so anyway, back to the slides. So we did a big thank you out to our sponsors. So Codify, Microsoft, they've been with us for ages. They're amazing. They're awesome. Being a community group, I'm going to put my beer down before I break something. Being a community group, we are always looking for people to participate. So if anyone out there has got a topic that they're interested in, they want to talk about, let us know. It doesn't have to be a full hour. We're happy to join up a couple of people. If you've got smaller topics, things that you've done, experiences in Azure, it doesn't have to be the latest and greatest. It's preferably not the latest and greatest. It's preferably real world experience. What have you experienced? What are some of the pain points? What are some of the opportunities? What are some of the benefits? Try and have a bit of the benefits in there. We would love to hear from you. So we've got a couple of sessions free for this year. And then we have somebody booked in. So Sunir is booked in for December. We've got 2 months. So if you have any talks, presentations, let us know. We're really keen to hear from you.
And they take anyone.
Well, it's either we take somebody or we have to do it ourselves. So yeah, we don't take anyone. We reserve a few leave. Right, excellent. So there's the email. Drop us a line. We're really keen to hear from you. All right, so a few updates. As everybody may or may not know, this is my favorite update that's been trucking along for about a year now. It's finally gone GA. So that's really awesome. So I put this one first. This is not biased from my opinion at all. This is just the most important thing that's happened in Azure in 10 years. No opinion. So Azure Network Security Perimeter, it's the beginning of the old journey, I feel. I'm going to frame it that way. So the old journey of Azure was PaaS, and then we kind of had this hiccup and fell over and went infrastructure. That's horrible. Now we're back on the PaaS journey and making PaaS good again. What does it make PaaS great again? I don't know. Is there a hat? Maybe, I don't know, something like that. It's okay there. Right. But anyway, this has come out GA, so it's a way to secure your PaaS services without VNets. So it makes things really simple and really accessible for a lot of people that are doing development in PaaS. They don't necessarily want to get involved with all the infrastructure. It is early days. There are only a couple of services. It's mainly focused on the data services at the moment, but it allows you to put those data services in a has equivalent of a VNet, and it basically wafts off all of the access to those. It does require managed identities. So if you don't like managed identities, I'm sorry, you need to use managed identities to take advantage of this. But if you are okay with managed identities, this is the ticket. All right. So AKS, just for Bernie, is not here anymore. But anyway, AKS has had a gone gangbusters. There's so many things happening with AKS over the last month. And this is just one of the slides. And they were getting so boring, I had to just put some icons up here just to, tap people's attention off the actual detail. So we got managed namespaces, we got security dashboard, we've got virtual network verify with AKS. Kind of seems to hijack some existing functionality, but anyway, we'll give it to them. And we've got AKS multiple standard load balancers available. So also we have fixed source IP addressing for outbound traffic. We got DNS proxy deployed on each node. We got Azure Bastion integration for AKS. And would it ever be complete without some sort of AI reference in there? But luckily for AKS, we have MCP for AKS. Oh, wrong laptop. Sorry. All right. So Azure Private Application Gateway. So App Gateway, it now can be fully private. So for all those people that are deploying that in your VNets, this is now an option. We've got Max Surge has come into preview. So a number of the Azure products have got the Max Surge capability. So they bump up the nodes when they're doing upgrades, and they make sure that you've got the availability there to do all of that. So that's pretty cool to see coming through. I guess app service inbound IPv6. So IPv6 has been a bit of a slow roll over the last a long time. It feels like a really long time. So it's good. We're starting to see more IPv6 stuff come through, which is always good to see. And then we've got tenant level service health alerts. So for all those people that are going to that portal, you all know the portal I'm talking about, you can now create alerts and get that to come through for yourself. So it makes it a little bit easier for yourself. Logic App Standard has now got an automation test framework. So it makes it a little bit easier to test your Logic apps. So I know a lot of you people here have got experience with Logic apps. It's a great product. It's always been a bit not quite code, but now this is starting to get some of the ability of those coding platforms to have actual proper testing. So it's good to see. We've now got, it's a bit late, right? Like we're nearly .NET 10, but anyway, .NET 8 is now rolling out for Logic apps. So I give Logic apps a lot of grief. They're the slow cousin, but that's fine. They're getting there. So it's good to see that we've moved on from, for a long time, it was .NET framework only. So getting some, I don't think you're allowed to say .NET Core anymore, are you? Like it's just .NET. Sorry, my bad. And we got BPM has gone GA. So BPM has been with Logic apps for, I don't know, help me out, Dan. Like it's like about a year now, I think. BPM, at least a year, right? So it's been there for a long time, and now we finally had it go GA. So that's really good to see for Logic apps. And then finally, this is really cool. This one here, organizational templates. So you can actually define like standard structures, templates that you can reuse within your organization. So for Logic apps, that's really cool, and that should help accelerate a lot of activities. APIM, we've now got workspaces and workspace gateways. So that's pretty cool. So that helps create a distributed APIM environment where you have distributed teams, but then bring it back together to get that centralized management and oversight of what's going on. So that's really good to see. And everybody probably already knows, APIM is already a distributed API management platform that you can deploy on-premise, you can deploy in AWS, you can deploy in Azure, obviously, but wherever you want, and you get that centralized view across your entire capability, and now this brings it to another level. Okay. more AI. So it's an AI night. So I couldn't leave APEM without its AI foray. But this is actually pretty good, and one of the better reasons to use APEM is that you can easily add security. So a lot of these MCP protocols have been rushed out, maybe not the best security in place. Well, now you can wrap and expose that through APEM and actually provide standards-based security that you're familiar with. That was the biggest benefit I saw for MCP coming out through APEM. So it's pretty cool. All right. So we do have a couple of events. I don't know if, yeah, I can talk to these. So we've got Ignite. Oh, Dan, do you want to talk to them?
Yeah, I can talk about it. And you can buy a ticket if you want. Very expensive ticket to attend if you want to travel to San Francisco, but it's free to attend it online. So registrations are open for that. And I think that even you can start building a schedule. It might be far better soon. You will.
So
Very soon you'll be able to do that. DTD Brisbane, that's a local conference for us here. It's a free one, I think. And I think this is the one also where you actually choose who speaks, right? You get the vote. So that everybody submits talks and you can go in and pick, and the highest votes win as far as for putting the agenda together. So yeah, definitely registrations are open for that. That's
coming up.
December. And then a couple of days after that, you have Brisbane, which I think that does cost a bit.
Yeah.
Won't cost as much as Ignite.
Not as much as Ignite.
Ignite tickets like $2,200 US or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the competition. And this is the most important one. Right here. So for the 5th year in a row, I'm running the Bridge to Brisbane this Sunday and raising money for Guide Dogs Queensland, which is a really, really good charity. An interesting statistic, they visited us at Deloitte last week, and I found out that of all the dogs I train, only about 40% of them actually make it through and graduate to become full guide. The rest of them, wind up doing other therapies and stuff like that. But it's interesting. But that 40% is actually very high percentage. But it takes a lot of money, obviously, to get it going. So if you feel charitable, tonight that QR code will take you to my fundraising page.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Just some resources. So we do have a Slack channel and we do have a YouTube channel. So this presentation will be up on the YouTube channel very shortly. Well, usually takes a few days. Just some links here, like if you're interested in like learning or reading some blogs, they're pretty cool. Now, without any further ado, I am going to. There we go. I'm going to hand it over to Lee Simpson. So I have known Lee for quite some time. We are going to talk about AI accelerated software engineering. So Lee Simpson leads the Deloitte engineering capability here in Brisbane.
Yes.
And yes, and with like, there's a lot more. So I've known Lee for quite a while. He's a great bloke, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Gotta take your shoes. This is a Mac message.
Famous last words. So if anyone has a topic, we are interested. If you would like to present next month.
Actually, we think
we have
a
one?
speaker next month. I heard Ron John.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm gonna give it the point.
and he gets logic apps.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Am I right? That didn't work. There we go. I don't know which screen to look at. I've got one here. Great. So thank you everyone for coming out after work. So pretty good attendance, I think, and folks online. Yeah, thanks for our sponsors and also Damien and Dan for organising the whole thing and actually letting me speak. So today is a wonderful topic, AI accelerated engineering. So a little bit of background around this. Who's heard of AI? No, I'm not going to make that. Yeah, so as Damien says, I look after the engineering team here in Queensland, but I also have another role, which is a national role at Deloitte, which is trying to drive AI accelerated engineering across our SDLC, looking across our people, processes, and sorts. And so that's a much bigger job. But I do get to see a lot of things of what people are doing across all of our customers. So I'm going to give you a little bit of tidbit of the things that I've seen. Also, from a housekeeping perspective, I'd love this to be a little bit interactive. So do shout out or put your hand up or whatnot if you have an opinion, because we all have one. I will zip through. I'll try and be pretty quick. I know people are wanting to get out of here before 8 o'clock, so I will definitely not drain this whole thing. Although my demo might run a bit slow if as Americans wake up and start using AI and I want to use it, it's going to be slow. So apologize for that in advance. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some background. SDLC as a broad set of things, not just coding, and you'll see why as this evolves. I'll give just a brief overview of the types of tools that we have available. And then I'm going to try and do 2 demos. I'll see how the time goes. And then I'll finish up and maybe I'll merge the observation with the demos to see how time goes. So why are we talking about software engineering and AI? I think that as a consultant, I can use the words, there are 3 driving forces. No, I'm not going to use this one. There's a few bits that are coming together that are causing this to be a hot topic right now. The first one, and I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail. We've got this rapid exponential growth of generative AI, which you're very much aware of if you watch any sort of Reddit post or YouTube video. Every week there's another model that pops out, and all the models are competing with each other. So we're seeing that. The second part is there's a very strong alignment between LLMs, text-based predictive models, and software, which is really just text. And so it really lends itself to that. The second part of that same bubble is that AI, as you know, is not very deterministic. It makes like heaps of mistakes, like all the time, frustratingly so. However, the software angle of things, you can actually compile it, you can lint it, you can check it, you can create tests. So you can have it test itself and not necessarily, whereas if you were asking it to I wasn't going to pick on you, but if you were to like, have it come up with references, for example, to papers, and it were to if it were to make a mistake, no, it didn't happen to Nathan, but it did happen to somebody at Deloitte recently. We are in there, so I apologize. Those sorts of things are really hard to test for. You actually have to go through each line. However, with software engineering, you can have the computers do a lot of that assertion for you. The last one is the recent explosion in AI tooling. So what this is really is the agentic frameworks that have emerged and how they've been applied to software engineering. So you've got things like, Klein and RuCode and GitHub CoPilot and Kiro and Claude Code. The list is really long. And there's another one every month. There's another tool. So admittedly quite saturated, but they stack on top of each other. So you've got like this amazing framework, and you've got amazing LLMs, and the two together are actually getting super powerful. We start talking about benchmarks. We're in this like Moore's law equation again, which is fun. And I always being old like me is great in some respects, although I couldn't stand up now, so sitting up too long, it's really hard. But you do get to reflect on some of the similarities that we've had previously, with the hardware around when we had exponential growth and Moore's law and whatnot. When you see the benchmarks that come out, OpenAI will bring out its new benchmark, and then they'll show all these graphs, and they're all a lot of fun and whatnot. But one of the big challenges with benchmarks is they get saturated really, really quickly, especially when things are moving at such a pace. So you've got ones which are beating the more most difficult math exam, and some of these coding tests, they're all at 100%. So then they come up with new tests, and then eventually they get to 100%, and then there's new tests, etc. This particular style of benchmarking is different because it measures how much time is the agent, so the AI, saving a human. So back in 2020, 2021, it was in the software space, obviously narrowed to a field. It would be doing like things like code completion. So you'd start typing and it would finish your word or your sentence. So it might save you seconds, type of thing. 1 or 2 seconds here and there, and it would add up. It was cool and everything. Code completion was fun. Or on your phone, you can text and it would finish some things. However, now it's finishing things that are close to potentially 2 hours worth of work. The cool thing is this doesn't have a ceiling. This will just keep going. Well, we think it's going to keep going. Moore's law suggests it will. There's 2 things driving. It's similar to silicon when that was mooring. Can I use that as a verb? What was happening is they were trying to fit more stuff onto a chip. They were trying to shrink the chips, and in here what we're trying to do is create bigger LLMs, like more compute. But then then eventually the chips would tap out, and you go, oh, we've hit the ceiling of chips. But guess what? Like they invented multi-threading, and now you got like multi-cores, or they changed the architecture of the chip, so the compute still carried on. And it's the same thing that's happening here. The paradigms that are being released that are causing this. And there's so much investment, there's so much interest in investment like being poured into this that we're seeing this growth. So everything that I say today, or any limitations that you have to suffix it with the word yet. So if you think AI can't do that yet, come tomorrow. So I'm quite optimistic from that perspective. However, I'm a little bit more cautious than most people when it comes to some of the capabilities of agents and how amazing they are. Can they replace, entire workforces? No, they can't. So when we talk software development lifecycle, if you think about a team that's delivering software, it's super important that we think about the whole process. Like it's, people tend to go straight to the coding, but there's a bucket of other stuff that happens from, requirements and software understanding and trying to figure out what people want, all the way to understand, executing unit tests, operations, etc. There's a whole cycle there. When we're trying to improve that process or make it faster, system thinking is a great thing. So what system thinking suggests is look at the whole process, figure out what is taking the longest, tackle that first, so that it's no longer the longest taking thing, and then you'll then do it again, and then find the next thing. It's very similar in the software development lifecycle. Typically, it's not necessarily development that's slowing you down. I can give you a hint. It's usually there's messy stuff in the beginning, like figuring out requirements. Am I right, Damien?
That's exactly right.
So when we talk, I'm to make this bigger for my eyes. We talk about this process. This is not the SDLC. Another thing to think about, the software development lifecycle is different for everyone. It's like it's a bit unique to the team. It's like architecture. It's, if I were to group you into several different groups, you'll all come up with a different process. That's fun as well, and different names for things as well. Makes our industry really exciting to be in. Nothing standard. So I've just created one here for conversation. It's probably wrong according to everybody here. That's okay. But there's a bit of a pattern in here. You kind of start with requirements that are super vague. You then go into some sort of detailed requirements, and you start writing those things down. Very, very frequently, you need to understand existing code. The only time you don't have to understand existing code, if it's sort of greenfield applications for the first time you ever write it, that's like the one day. Day 2, you have to understand existing code. And if anything like me, like I forgot what I wrote a week ago. Like that is basically somebody else's code. Like next week, so
it's okay to blame ChatGPT.
So understanding code, then you develop components. Ideally, doing unit testing. You may swap these around depending on your paradigm. You might be very frequently you'll be testing this stuff before you deploy. You should be at least. And then you might have somebody else doing some independent testing. In this case, we have Guy doing all of ours, so that's good. And then all of the automated testing, and then there's obviously all of the DevOps, and blah blah, all the stuff, operations. All of these things take time, and you can see they're very document based. If you look at them, like every step, there's some sort of text going on. That's going to be important. So we think about the opportunities for AI. Every step you could apply AI in some way. You know, it might be 80% could be AI maybe, or it could be just a little bit. Like if I just hang on the beginning side of things, what we're seeing, and we've got this working in a few clients, is because of the magic of Microsoft and Teams, we can record all the meetings now and take those massive transcripts that people are talking through and then save them and then use AI to extract some key information. Like that's an amazing use case. It's very good. Obviously, you need to review the output and have to actually have potentially, have been in the meeting or review the output. So there is that, but it's a lot quicker. And you usually get a lot more detail out for you to review. Generating detailed design, absolutely, you can generate documents, especially if you've got templates. I'll do a demo of this specifically. If you've got templates and detailed templates and you have requirements, you can essentially have it fill in the gaps. There's an important message here around if you're asking AI to do something but you're not giving it the context, it's going to make stuff up. I was going to say make shit up. Am I allowed to say that? You can say that. Are there children on the call? It's going to make stuff up. So you got to give it enough information. We'll talk more about that later. Then you're in developing components, which I'm going to talk about later. Obviously, that's the dev cycle, unit testing, etc. All the way through. There's opportunities to grab the stuff from the previous step, potentially inject it with some more stuff, and have it generate the next step. That's the general gist of it. Make sure you go faster. Does it actually improve your speed? Don't ask me. Ask the several studies that I could find. I used OpenAI's research mode to try and find this stuff.
Nice AI.
Yeah, it's like, how should we answer this? Actually, they're very critical studies. What my observation was here is there's not a lot of research on this. Even all of these, they're all like, all of the, the first thing you do when you look at a science paper or a white paper is you look at the methodology and see, is it a robust methodology? All of these are flawed in some way. But, so if you try and summarize through them, there's definitely a positive impact across, like a general positive impact. The percentages are a bit all over the place. When you're looking at smaller tasks or things that are reasonably small, it does really well, which kind of correlates to slide 2, where we said it's 2 hours of work it can potentially do. If you're asking it to do any more than that, it's going to make shit up. Complex code bases can slow you down. This is true for humans as well, but AI can get incredibly confused. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but there's an important thing that happens with LLMs today, not tomorrow, is that the more stuff that you stuff into the context, the worse your results. So if you so even with the ones that are like, 1 million tokens or 2 million tokens or whatever, that you're cramming in there, as you put that full of stuff, the results you get are like, mediocre. So large code bases, it's gonna suck a little bit.
Can I just?
Oh yeah.
You said the bigger the task you give it, the more likely it will come up with some problems.
Yes.
So if you, at a high level, frame something that says, give me the 15 steps to get through this project.
Yes.
But don't go down below. Just give me the steps as a competent set of steps.
Yes.
Is it likely to get that sort of right? But if you start wanting it to drill down 2 or 3 layers, that's when it starts failing.
Yeah, absolutely. If you try to do that all at once, it's gonna fail.
So you can frame it as give me the 15 steps,
yes,
and then you can lead it down the rabbit hole in each one of those.
Exactly.
That's what the context was something like around 300k tokens was the starting point. And there was the term mega prompts was going out of favor.
Oh yes, like stuffing everything you possibly can into the context. Exactly. It'll just start. It's like humans really. Like you just lose interest.
It's annoyance.
Yeah, exactly. And the other key result of this is, as I suggested before, developers do a lot of stuff besides coding. So trying to measure that one thing, like a very noisy industry with lots of stuff going on, it's really hard. But if anybody spots any other papers on this, keen to get it. Clients frequently come to us and say, we want this cheaper because you're using Gen AI. It's like, oh, how much cheaper? So there are literally hundreds, no, probably thousands of Gen AI tools. They're like so many. So it's pretty easy to think of them as categories. And I'll probably go through this pretty quickly, but on the left-hand side, you've got, the most super popular one is chat. It's not going to go away anytime soon. We're still chatting, still got ChatGPT and, Microsoft CoPilot. Microsoft CoPilot on the side there. Chatting with all things. It's a very low friction, easy to use thing. It's still super useful. I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to get good at chat around the stuff that you put in. It's going to be around for a while. You can also programmatically access these things through the API. There's code completion because this is a tech thing around software development. There's obviously some tools, specific tools that you can have in there. Those green ones I left in accidentally. Those are Deloitte tools. They're not for sale. Sorry. However, the agentic assistant. So that's so hot right now in 2025. So like last year was the year of Gen AI. This year is the year of the agentic, the year of agentic. I'll stretch forward slightly, and this is what we've seen with some tools like GitHub CoPilot. There's the hosted agentic assistant, which the difference of that is instead of it running and you sitting and waiting, which you tend to do a lot of, now you can potentially create a task and have it run over there on the server and then kind of notify you when it's finished. And the third one on there, which is a variation, arguably a variation, and we're going to get more of it, is like the idea of having multi-agents and agents talking to agents. Now, I'm a little bit cautious on the multi-agent stuff. Agents talking to agents. I think Gen AI by itself is already not amazingly deterministic, and you've got to check like one iteration. When an agent flows, it's doing multi-steps, so your chance of getting exactly what you wanted is a little bit further out. Now you've got multi-agents and agents talking to agents. Like your results may vary. And then you've got like the third one, which is happening right now. You've got agent-to-agent communication, which means you've got agents from different providers and different companies that are like got their own dev cycles and own testing. Now you're suddenly bringing two agents together and you're expecting them just to work together. I just don't think we're there yet. Sorry, I'm a bit cautious. Anyway, this is where we are. Right, so zooming into the agentic coding tool. So essentially that agentic assistant one right there, the little robot. You like look at those. Here's a few. This is from 6th of August when I had a scan of some of the top ones. Again, I put a date on there on purpose because literally every week there's a new tool. You got Kiro, which is the AWS one that came out, I think, in the beginning of August. We get a CoPilot one, which I'll use today because it's all about Azure. There's the Rucode and Klein, if you haven't seen it before, essentially open source models with lots and lots and lots of community support pushing these things. These are just VS Code clones. Sorry, these are VS Code plugins. Kiro is a clone. And then you've got like the Ada and Claude Code, which are a little bit different paradigm. These are command line tools that you can just type in and they run in the console. Lots of use for those. And right now today, you've probably got Codex as well, excuse me. Codex as well, which probably should be added in there as a list. Any others that people are using?
Open code.
Open code, yes, of course. Sam, thank you. Yeah, there's definitely no shortage of. I look at these and I go, yeah, this one's slightly better, and then a week later, this one's slightly better, and this one's better slightly with those things. They all kind of start blurring together as a bit of a commodity. I don't think the magic's in the tool here. Obviously, the magic is obviously in the LLM that's doing all of the hard work. The tool is essentially coordinating and managing. The magic is going to be how you use it, and the tools and skills that we have. All right, no AI talk around software engineering would be complete without talking about vibe coding. So, what vibe coding is, this was a term coined by our wonderful chiropathy, and it's a kind of coding that he coined back in February, where you fully give into the vibes, where you embrace exponentials. I don't even know what that means, and you forget that the code even exists. So you just kind of prompt away, and you can create all sorts of apps. And it's amazing. And it's actually like it's a lot of fun. And if you haven't actually maybe this is instead of asking who has vibe coded, who has not vibe coded yet. There you go. You should try it. It is good. However, it comes with a warning label. It's fun until it's not. very quickly, your vibe coded application hits a complexity point. It's usually after about 7 prompts or something like that. And then it starts doing weird and wonderful things, in which you start, prompting it back, and then you start shouting at it. And then you throw it up, and then you go find a real developer to go and actually help you finish the app. That tends to be it. So like vibe debugging, tends to be where you end up with. I don't want to dismiss it completely. It's not good for enterprise applications. However, I would say it's really good for prototyping, like those. You instead of screen designing, you might just bash out some screens and have some basic flows that you might, have in there. But the other one, which I think is really cool right now, is disposable micro apps. So I give you an example. The example I used last time, because I don't have another one, is the other day I was trying to extract images out of a PDF. I don't know why I was needed to do that, but that was what I wanted to try and do. So normally what you do is say, I need to get images out of PDF. I could do this manually, but there's there's 30 images. It's going to take too long. The other option is I could take this PowerPoint or this PDF and put it online into one of these thousands of apps where you can just drop it in. I don't really want to do that with client data, AFR again. And then, so the other was like, hey, I could just create a disposable app for this. So I vibe coded in literally 4 minutes, extract the images out of this PDF. And I didn't even look at the code because I could just test it. I know it's not going to do anything. Wrote the code, executed, Bob's your uncle had after the bits. And then I can just delete it. I didn't delete it, but I could have. There's a whole bunch of examples. There's another example for where we did some data cleansing for a company that we were migrating stuff into Microsoft Dynamics, the F&O product. And they had a bunch of bad data in there, and they were trying to load it into Excel, but Excel was just breaking because it was just too long and you couldn't actually move the mouse anymore. So we asked AI to, move the columns around or whatever we had to do, and it created this wonderful Python app to do the job. You could run it, took seconds, check the output. That's great. Did the import, delete the app. So I think there's utility here, but notice the word there, delete the app. Don't think of that as anything that you're going to use anything more. All right. So our favorite. So prompt engineering is last year. This year is all about context engineering. So you don't call yourself a prompt engineer anymore. You call yourself a context engineer. And so this is the wonderful art it's the delicate art and science of filling the context window with just the right information for the next step. So that just the right information was the interesting part there. Not too much, not too little. Exactly what do you need to do the next step. So that's really it. If I could end the talk there, that's all. That's everything you need to know. There you go. If you put too little information in there, it's going to make stuff up for the gap. If you put too much information there, it's going to start making mistakes. There's the thing. All of these wonderful agentic bits and all of the thousands of tools that you see, at the core, this is all it is you have a bunch of context, which is instructions, knowledge, tools, possibly some other bits and pieces that gets pushed through an incredibly stateless LLM that doesn't remember anything that you push through, and you get a generated output that's a predictive output. That's it. So I have people telling me things like, oh yeah, if I do it again, will it remember what I did last time? No, it will not remember what you did last time unless you put it back into the beginning and push it through again. It's an important bit. All that an agent is a wrapper on top of that. Essentially, it's a little framework that says, I want to create this other task. I want to do this long-running thing. You've got access to these tools. Come up with a plan for me and execute this whole thing. It's going to go through and say, cool, here's the plan and these are the tools I'm going to use, and it's done. And then the framework goes and then goes and takes the first thing and pushes it through again, and it pushes it through again until you're complete. So that's
Sorry to interrupt. There's a guy called Jeffrey Huntley, who's an Aussie, who was working for a company called SourceGraph, who have an agentic tool called AMP, and he had a talk that he put out a little while ago where he was telling people about how to build agents. I think he had, it was building one in 100 lines of Python code kind of thing. And so yeah, you're right. It's not rocket surgery.
Rocket surgery. So what you did there. Yes, there's the Python libraries available, similar to before. There's a commodity, there's a whole bunch of them. They're pretty cool. And you can build something in one library and then port it to another library, as Nathan found out yesterday. We were battling with one and he just pulled it to the other. The library does most of the work. I would say, how many lines did you say? 30,
I think he said 100, but yeah, there's probably libraries where you can do it even less now.
like 6.
This was like a month ago, so
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
an ancient big
That's all. Yeah, it's like a decade ago. When we start thinking about large code bases, like I said before, you can't cram the large code base into the LLM. You need to chunk it up in some way, which is actually quite a hard problem, because how do you chunk a large code base? Do you chunk it by functions? There's all these kind of problems that you start having, and then you have all of these wonderful computer science things around ASTs, chunking, and summarization, file search, knowledge graphs, etc. So it's an interesting paradigm there that we're seeing. There's a few techniques that are emerging, so but watch this space. I think GitHub CoPilot does a reasonable job with a medium-sized code base. But the minute you've got multiple code bases, like most of us do, or you have large code bases, it's going to struggle. So this is, like to talk about Deloitte for a second and our consulting. This is the sponsor part of the video that you can't skip, because you pay the premium to come here. There's annoying YouTube videos that you can't spoil. Sorry. So I will give my 30 seconds here. If you're thinking about a job between consulting and not consulting, consulting is definitely the better way to go. I'm not biased in any way whatsoever. Offers a wide range of stuff versus one organization. It's like the best of both worlds. You can have the contracting, but you're in a permanent position. It's awesome. And Deloitte, by the way, in terms of places to work, we are the biggest. We're the #1 public professional service firm in the world, just by the way. And the cool thing about being big is we get to work on really, really, really wicked problems, like big ones. The other differentiator, I'm zipping through this really quick. The other one, we have a clear merit-based progression system. You don't have to wait for somebody to die or leave the organization for a promotion. And we are hiring. We are literally always hiring. But today we're hiring Azure developers, Azure engineers, cyber engineers for Azure, operations, automated testing. Probably data folks, I didn't get that, but there's probably data things that you're doing. So I do reach out, scan the code, talk to Dan. Thank you. Let's get that bit. All right, now to get to the fun part, the demo. So I've come up with a little diagram here, which is to try and get the language a little bit more precise around what we're talking about. It's typically with a project, there isn't just like one design and like one thing. There's usually multiple of them. It's more complicated. It's really hard to project down the complexity of what we do onto one slide. So, excuse the dumbness down of how this is done. On the left-hand side is, typically you have an overall solution. And I've used like purposely, like try to stick with like a C4 syntax here. You might have multiple platforms or multiple applications talking to each other. They're different things. Those platforms or applications are broken down into multiple components. And they're broken down again into smaller and smaller bits. So it's quite messy and complicated. And you usually don't try and do all of the design and all of the analysis of the entire thing all at once. Usually, I mean, it does happen. There are organizations that try it, but you technically chunk it up. So that's really what that left-hand side bit is. Then there's the detailed requirement bit, which is really the specifications. I'm going to use this language like quite specifically. There's the specs. Now, ideally, what we tend to do in software engineering is we tend to conflate the detailed requirements and the detailed design all into one. I'm suggesting that we try not do that. I talk about it all day long. The requirements are essentially what you want to build, not necessarily how you want to build it. They exclude technology. They're things that you can potentially test against, like, hey, I could test against this specific requirement. This is what the user wants. What happens, and there's a bit of a washing machine in the process here, where the minute you start asking for detailed requirements, you might change the overall solution. You say, you've uncovered a requirement. Actually, Adam, you had this exact example. You start working through it and you realize you're missing a whole freaking piece on the left, and you've got to go through the washing machine again. Unfortunately, that one was painful. The same for the detailed design. So the detailed design is more how you're going to choose to build it. This is like, hey, I'm going to realize this into a particular technology stack, whatever that might be. It's extreme, in this case, extremely detailed. And the way you do that is essentially you project two things into that. You're projecting your requirements from the left-hand side, and you're projecting this thing at the bottom, which is your technical, which is the word that's used here, is the technical constitution. The constitution essentially is like your principles and guidelines, and like this is the tech stack I've chosen. These are the principles. I will always do this. I will never do that. That's these rules and regulations and all these choices that the architects might go through, your designers might go through. And so when you do design, you're essentially smashing these two things together to a love child, which is your detailed design. And then you realize immediately when you do that, you have a bunch of questions like, well, what happens if this happens? And there's an edge case here. What about that? And then what we tend to do is we just put that into the design and forget about it. What you should be doing is going back and then updating your requirements, because then that's where requirements come. So once you've done that, the next thing is typically then you break that into some sort of tasks. You don't just take a design and just spew it out. You kind of think about it a bit. You go, well, I need to create my, one entity model before I create my controllers, or there's like a sequence of events. You might chunk things down into smaller bits in the correct order. There's a bite sizing bit in here as well, where even if we don't apply this to AI, there's a bite sizing bit where we might chunk things up so we can get stuff done within a sprint. Sprint might be 2 weeks. You don't necessarily want to build everything. You don't want these big epics that run across too far. So there's a chunking bit inherent in all of this. And then the last one is the build. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pray to the demo gods, and I'm going to demonstrate essentially this as a method for developing software with an agent, where I'm going to go through this process a little bit more. So the kind of the opposite of vibe coding. I'm not going to go and just straight put stuff directly into the right-hand side for the build. I'm going to go from the requirement side. Are there any questions before I jump into that while I fumble with my computer?
Yeah, but obviously that trip from requirements to design, that's more deterministic. It's not multiple designs to
Yes. Yeah, absolutely right.
Do you cycle through? Do you validate all these designs to the requirement? Right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's like, I apologize for the simplicity of that picture. It's like it doesn't do any justice to the guidance. Yes, you absolutely can. Undo. All right, so my example is because this is the Azure user group, I have some code which is a .NET Azure function. Oh, question.
Might be good just to zoom slightly in.
Push the button again. Do that.
Good.
Yeah. Hey, this is good. I can actually do this forever. All right, so my solution here is a .NET function, and you're going to excuse some of my technical depth here. It starts to dissipate because I don't spend all day writing .NET functions. So to be more specific, this is Nathan's .NET function. So if you have anything wrong with it, you go, oh, wouldn't do it that way.
Typically, it's a minimum APLs.
There you go. Thank you. Right, so there's source code in here, and there's some tests. I did actually check that the test ran, which is quite good. There's a couple of tests in there. The API, for a bit of context, is I do have a diagram. There's a system context. Actually, these little context files are going to be really useful for humans, but also AI, to provide them with a bit of sense about what the hell is going on. Hey, if anybody's not used like Mermaid directly in Markdown, life changer. We used to reference and do these images of different apps and all of that crazy stuff. Now you can just use Markdown and write some text. And then when you hit the magic words around visual, you can get generated diagrams. Now, the great thing about generated diagrams like this is they're text-based. And guess what? LLMs have been incredibly trained on Mermaid and all of the meaning behind these sorts of diagrams. So this is the minimal bank user management system, and it's really tiny. Is it really tiny? All right, so yeah, you've basically got a database on the right-hand side. You've got a human on the left-hand side, and they're hitting an API. So quite simple, kept it simple for a purpose.
Yes.
And there's a bunch of components in here. So this is using the repository pattern. As you can see, there's some validators and user repositories, etc. Don't need to worry about those. So a bit of broad system. So here's an existing app. So what I'm going to do is we have a new requirement, which I've extracted from Azure DevOps. And we want to create the user API. Now notice, first thing is these requirements are going to be incredibly vague. Hey, we need to update users. How would you like to update users? Well, I want you to enrich stuff without affecting data and make sure the addresses are valid Australian addresses. Pretty vague, but that's all right. So now we have the wonderful magic of AI. So GitHub CoPilot. Who uses GitHub CoPilot day to day? That's good. That's good. So let's admit, like 2 months ago, it was pretty shit. But the features that are coming out are like fast and furious at the moment. It's getting good. Where now it's actually my #1 driver. I don't bother with some of the other tools because it does most of the work, and then every now and then I might drop to something else. But for the most part, it is the way to go. Yes. It's got this cool thing in there called chat modes. So if you drop a file in here with a chat mode, I think you can, with the agent. Normally you get ask, by the way. The default, if you do nothing, it's just going to be in like ask or edit mode. You really want to flip to agent mode if you haven't done that already. But you can now, as of probably a few weeks ago, you can essentially configure modes, which all it really does is it opens a little file over here on the left-hand side. So I'm going to use an agent. If you like, I've created an agent with 0 lines of code in this case. And basically sticking all the instructions into this file. So the agent, the description is really just description, what tools you want access to. If you click on this configure tools, you can add lots more tools. And here is the prompt. So prompt engineering, there is a bit of prompt engineering going on still. Essentially, I'm explaining to the AI how to elaborate a particular API requirement. So this agent has got a bit of knowledge around how I like APIs to be described. It's also got a template in there. So if I choose this API requirement specifications agent, I can just load this up. The minute you kind of have it open like that, it's going to be in the context. You can say, you don't really need to say much at all. This design. Oh, sorry. Let's go specify. Specify. I don't even need to spell properly. So good AI. I'm using GPT-5 Mini here. It doesn't really matter. So immediately, the agent pops up. If you haven't seen this before, it's using tools. It's referencing 2 things. You can see it's referencing the system context, which is the overall. Let me understand exactly what's going on. You've got to think about this from a context engineering perspective. When I clicked send there, this AI knew nothing about anything whatsoever. So I've got to make sure all the things in the prompt are all the things I would explain to a designer exactly what I want them to do. In which case, it's great. It's failed. I'm not going to use Mini today. Why am I even bothering with Mini? Which one should I use? Let's go with 4. By the way, if you didn't know, these little 1x and 0x's on the side is like the multiplier of how many underlying usages you get, and it's not token based. I figured that out the other day. It's not like you don't get a number of tokens. You get a number of sessions, like a number of requests. So if your session is really freaking complex and it goes on and on and on, that's 1. So pro tip. Give it really complex stuff, save money. Yeah. All right, so it's kind of messed up, but it's not a big deal. It's instead of creating a new file like I told it to because I used the Mini, it's gone and updated the file. But it's not a train smash. It's good enough. And important lesson here as well: the complexity of the task is proportional or related to the complexity or the strength of the AI model that you might want to use. So the GPT-5 Mini not that smart, but it's quick. Usually things like this it would be fine with, but I wouldn't be asking this for anything complex in code. It usually will give up. All right, so what it's done is it's taken my vague requirement and created a wonderful set of acceptance criteria. Now, the important thing here, it looks really good, and I could skip along here and it'll be completely fine. But you need to have a human in the loop at every one of these damn steps. So because it will make mistakes, but it's a lot easier and quicker to go and edit, review this document and make some tweaks to it than to write the document from scratch. So you're getting some acceleration here. So now we have some detailed requirements. So this is within the scope of an API. Zip along really quickly. I'm going to accept this and say, yep. The other interesting thing is, like, do you extend this chat, carry on with your next step, or do you go, I'm going to start again with some context? I personally like to start new chats like frequently, because every time you extend the chat too long, the AI is like, this context window is getting bigger and bigger, and it's going to start making some glorious mistakes. So the next step is I'm going to create a detailed design. For the detailed design, if I look at the agent itself, there's a bunch of instructions in here around exactly what I want it to do, like look at all the detailed requirements. And I'm going to ask for a very, very detailed template, which has got all these bits in there referencing the schemas and all the bits and bobs in there. I'm going to ask for a sequence diagram, an example. So there's a lot of work. By the way, these you might go, oh man, this means I need to go back to my team and then create all of these like really big prompts. These you can generate. You can literally go into AI and say, look at my code base and, or look at these documents and create me a set of instructions, or create me a template. And so you can use your existing code to create these things. Design this API. I will give it some context, which is this big document here. I'm going to use Sonnet this time. So just for anchoring right now, we've done this specifications block. We've done the detailed requirements. Ideally, you'd be validating that. Now doing a detailed design. These technical guidelines and principles were embedded in the agent in this particular case. There are lots of different ways of doing this workflow, by the way, but this diagram is the same. And I'll show you a variation in a minute of doing the same workflow. And now using Sonnet 4. This will be the same, so I'll talk ahead for a second. This will create a detailed design. It'll be incredibly detailed. There you go. All the acceptance criteria that I asked it to put in the beginning, all the entity framework bits that it's inferred from my design docs. Super comprehensive to sequence diagram. Obviously, we're not going to validate it here. I'm going to assume it's correct. You definitely would be validating this. The data model, which was a reference in the code as well. What success looks like, example payloads, what errors look like, etc. So you can see it's a very detailed doc. Here's what Damien does at Queensland Rail all day, by the way. He generates these docs. Yeah, but you can see the level of detail that's come. So you're essentially getting two things. You're getting a high level of quality because you're able to describe this stuff more. But it does shift the type of activities that you're doing. You instead of writing something, you're essentially now reviewing something. And if it makes a mistake, which it will, absolutely, like the first few times you do this, it's going to be problematic. It's going to create junk. Your job right there is not necessarily to fix it directly. Is you go back to your prompt and you go back to your context and you fix it there. Because you fix it there for once, and then you can generate it again. It's going to be, you're saving yourself future use and time. So let's keep that. And then my last step, I got the API builder prompt in here. So I'm going to take my wonderful detailed requirements. Sorry, my detailed design, not my requirements. But change my agents to the builder. And I'm going to say, build this. I don't even need to type it in. I mean, sometimes when you're doing this sort of stuff, the biggest challenge I have is getting bored while I'm waiting for this thing to finish. So when I do this sort of stuff at home, and when I do this sort of stuff at home, I'll have a YouTube window like open on the side, waiting for this thing to finish so I can go have a look at what's going on. But I do imagine that what's going to happen is the ability to run multiple things at the same time. Maybe spinning each of these changes into its own feature branch, so you're kind of running them in parallel. Unfortunately, so we're actually going to be more stressed as a cohort, because we're going to be multitasking even more. Sorry, Adam, when you come back to the workforce, that's what's waiting for you.
Your definition of context.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So another pro tip here is, if you haven't seen it, is this to-dos thing on the top right. I did ask the agent to break this thing up into tasks and execute all at once. I kind of, normally you couldn't do it without this feature. This is a new thing that GitHub CoPilot is releasing. It's not quite available yet, but if you go into your settings and search for to-do, you can see that you can turn on this feature. It's in preview at the moment. And essentially it gives you these extra tools to kind of break things up into tasks and see what it's doing. You don't get it by default. And with the stronger models like GPT-4, like Sonnet and GPT-5, like the full version, it tends to follow it really well. But if you use a weaker model, like the normal GPT-4 or 5 mini, it'll do like 3 or 4 of these and then kind of lose interest. And then you'd have to go and prompt it and say, did you do all the to-dos? A little bit like a teenager. And you'd have to like follow up after them type of thing. So I have 2 teenagers, so that's my analogy. But this will do a good job. So in our tests, this approach, most of the time, like if you've got good context and good prompts, most of the time it does this to about 90% correct. Like with a one-shot, build this. And if you've got a lot of it, in this example, if you're building a lot of APIs, especially for a lot of them are quite simple, you don't really have a lot of complexity in there. Like this is going to save you a lot of time.
Define the verb. Is there something to do?
So you need to put something in there. So I added the document. So you could just say go.
No, sorry. When you said make a put and does this.
Oh, that's another question.
If you like, is there a reason? No, you also said like you should be able to have that. No, it's fine. Sometimes it might go for bad. So giving it a little more context, we'll get more consistency.
Thank you. Added value there right there. Yeah, so there are a bit of interesting things about the delta. So that's a lot of this. A lot of this code is actually to deal with all of that.
So you expect with a multi-agent, but in the end, you're just going to go to the requirements to say generate requirements, and in the end, it's going to spit out code.
Oh, when all the multi-agents like work with each other, yeah, maybe in the future. The one I would caution is right now I have an opportunity to validate the steps as it goes. I should be checking the design or checking the specs. Maybe one day when things are more confident, I could have multiple agents do more things all at once. Yeah.
Yes, if you want to see the tokens, you can then a core of different models looking at difference.
Yep.
Input and output saying, is this
Yep.
vibe well? Is this good or is it bad? And
That's true.
if it's not good enough, like it doesn't reach you or
Yep.
anything else, you go back, say try again.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you could have 2 different models. You could have like Claude and Grok compete against each other.
Different sides.
Different sides, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you get tokens, that's no longer an issue. This will run and it'll run all the essentially it'll create a set of tests. It does like I said, this 9 times out of 10 this nails it every time.
You've got an update admin users controller,
Yes.
but you've got no 403s, so there's no auth here. So you're opening up the API for someone to delete all users.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lee, how have your teams gone with plan limitations and total number of tokens and credits that can be used in general?
Oh, yeah, it's a good question. So the limitations at GitHub with the enterprise version are actually pretty healthy. So we're trying to guide people to use the cheaper models, the free ones, the zero ones, as much as possible, and then jump to the 1x when required. That's the initial guidelines. And then when you run out, you can pay for more. We try to let our clients pay for all of the tokens. So the other approach is we'll like essentially create a key for that client, or even better, the client provides us their key and we use their tool. This with GitHub CoPilot, you can just point to the model, or you could use another tool for that. Yeah, what I dislike is some of these tools, and I don't want to call them out specifically, but some of them they offer like unlimited usage plan for like $15 a month. The problem with those plans is they themselves try to optimize the usage on their side, and you end up with poor results because they at the back end they're pushing things to cheaper models, or they're trying to do some voodoo magic to try and guess if it's an easy request or a hard request, and they try to fit you into that $15 boundary so they can make money. I don't like those. I'd rather just pay for your tokens.
But there's also the option of you can use the free cheap ass models, and then we can redo that 20 times and get it right. Anything with a proper model,
Just do it once.
$500, it's done. Or host it locally.
Oh, so there's a topic. If you're going to bash your head against the wall, if you like that, then yes, that is such a great choice.
Yeah, but you 14B, local 16 gig graphics card, works like jump.
And I was thinking about the local model training with them.
For prompting, I think you're absolutely right. But have you tried using tool calls with that? Like
that
this?
one, because not so much, it's more for just pure analysis.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. If you're just going to be prompting and, like general chat or whatever, amazing. Yes. And also if there's a nuclear apocalypse or a zombie outbreak, you're covered. You now have like the internet at home. Yeah, exactly. It's like the, what was that TV show where she has the internet in a box and she walks around. This is the internet. The IT crowd. Like that is a reality now. You can literally put it in a box. It's great. All right, I'm going to zip through this code, and the next step is obviously to, it's still working, but it's really got to the end. Oh, it's creating tests.
I reckon I can guess what it's like. How have you found people's willingness to accept something that is generated by this person? Like, are they scared to have this experience?
Oh yeah. It's I think there's a few dimensions to that question. One is like data privacy. Where's the data flowing? And me who's actively avoiding the AFR is so
For now.
Yeah, it's definitely a number one thing. Like we wouldn't be using like the DeepSeek models, for example. We would avoid those sorts of things. We tend to, if it was a bank you're referring to, the first set of conversations is like, hey, do you have a model that we can use? We recommend that you host it in your private Azure instance, and we will use that model through all of the boundaries, etc. That's the number one choice. If they prefer to use one of our models, we have a very limited set of things that we can do, but they're all again hosted in Australia on our infrastructure, etc. GitHub CoPilot itself is incredibly, like they've done all of the SOC 2, whatever, on security, SOC 2 compliant stuff, all in all the right states. So that's very compliant. The minute somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to use Cursor," use Cursor. Like, do you know where that data is going? Nobody knows where the data is going. I don't want to discuss. I'm sure it's fine, but I would want to know. Clients want to know. So that's probably number one. From a human perspective, if you talk about like getting scrutiny beyond the privacy conversations, there's definitely fears that developers are going to run this and just do the PR and then go home type of thing and not bother checking anything. Like that is an active concern. For that, I would say your job doesn't change. Like as a developer, you are still responsible and accountable for any mistakes like that is generated by the code. You're not offsetting anything. You're speeding it up, but it's still your responsibility. There is a company that's that we worked with, actually, Nicky and I did some work for them, and the IT folks are essentially monitoring everybody's pull requests, looking how much the volume of stuff that's been committed is their measure. Are you measuring that? I want to see who's using AI. It's like, you're measuring the wrong things here. Like, how is that a measure? Yeah, the volume. If you like put a lot of stuff together, that must be bad. Yeah. Like weird things. So I think it's like those things, like as people, as this
It's like a meeting. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
not terrible, but.
It's back to like counting lines of code to measure productivity.
Yeah, exactly.
Dashes code, more than lines of code.
Yeah. Well, ignorance.
Just on the multi-agent thing. Even though there's studios here, it's a single context, it's a single chat happening. But if you use row code, it has an orchestrator mode. So like spin off like different agents and it will be like its own context with that task. Report back to the orchestrator and continue that. So there is multi-orchestrator, multi-agent thing happening now, but
Yeah.
it's not too good, my experience. Not
Emerging.
yeah,
It's emerging. The other thing is the GitHub server components. I've got some stuff on there as well that you can actually do some of these things, running them on the server directly. Anyway, here we can see the changes. You can see it's done a bunch of stuff. If you remember how much stuff I really typed here, it was the original request, make an update. There were 3 sentences, but it did a bucket of stuff, right? We updated, we added the features and the handlers, and we created a new DTO. There's a user repository. And this just looks fine. Maybe not secure code, to your point. It's handlers. And then there's some tests. And according to this, hey, it did something pretty cool. It like one-shotted the tests. Normally these tests fail, like when I run this, and it would then go and fix some of the tests. But we went up from 80 something tests to 96 tests, all succeeding. Obviously, I would be validating these tests again if I had more time. So this is the way. I'm going to flip to another alternative thing. I've still got a few minutes, right? Yeah, I'm going to no more than 10 minutes and then I'm done. So coming back to this idea, I'll talk a bit conceptually for a second. If you think about this process that I went through, the code itself was generated. Like obviously I needed to check it, but it was essentially a projection of the requirements and my design. It was essentially projected. Much like if you were to compile your code into a binary, that binary is a projection. So in a way, I'm compiling my requirements into the code. So things are essentially shifting left a little bit here to the requirements. The most important thing, the most important artifact we've got here is essentially the detailed requirements. Because I can take those detailed requirements, choose another tech stack at the bottom, and then go generate another design and generate a plan and generate all the rest of it. The hard part is the requirements. If you think about vibe coding for a second, obviously you've heard my opinions on it. But with vibe coding, you sit there bashing it at the app for however long. You eventually get the code, and then you throw away all of your chats that you just did, which was your requirements, the most important part, and you end up with a code. The code is not the valuable part anymore. The valuable part is essentially your requirements, the thing that you don't have at Queensland Rallies. So there's actually an industry trend happening here, and I would say trend. It was back when I started development, this whole thing about like writing detailed specs and everything was a real thing. Then we tended to move away from a little bit. I feel it's all coming back. We're going back to full documents and things like that. However, AI is helping us write them. I think back then it was called spec-driven development. But it's back, baby.
What was that IBM product? Something
Rational road.
rational.
Right. There you go.
Let's go. That was so bad.
Sure. Actually, I haven't seen SDLC in a dev context for about 2 decades, formally mentioned. That everyone seemed to be scared to talk to that.
There you go.
Don't worry, we've all moved to DDD. Defect
Yeah.
So while we as Deloitte we're essentially evolving this method, if you call it a workflow. While this was all happening, the industry was essentially arriving at the same I'm not going to call it a conclusion, but it's because we're not finished. Like we're literally probably just getting started. But the point in time that we're at now, it's very similar. There's a GitHub themselves, or the GitHub team, recently released a open source repo called SpecKit, and you should definitely have a look at this one. It's build high quality software faster, and essentially what it is, it's basically it's a bunch of prompts that get installed into your IDE. It's supposed to be multi-IDE compatible, so I think they've got bits in there for Claude Code and obviously GitHub CoPilot and a few others. And essentially, it's a bunch of prompts and a bunch of scripts and things like that to execute the workflow that I just did, but in a very standard way across multiple IDEs. And it also, I mentioned Kiro a little while ago, which is a clone of GitHub, a clone of VS Code. What they did to differentiate is they decided to go spec-driven development right from the start, and they built all of that stuff into the framework. I'm not selling Kiro, by the way. I don't like it as a product, so like don't use it. But the paradigm is the interesting bit from there. So what you do really is you go here, and I'm not going to show you all the steps. You download the code. Well, actually, you don't even need to download the code. I think you can literally just execute it with a line of code here. You just initialize your repository. If you're doing something new, you do this. You can initialize a new repository. What it'll do, it'll ask you as part of the install, what is your ID? What are you using, GitHub CoPilot or whatever? And it'll set up some of the bits in there, and you can install it into an existing code base. And here's one I prepared earlier. So I'm going to do what I do best. I'm going to discard all of these changes. I'm going to jump to a branch I prepared on the weekend, which is the spec-driven approach. So the big difference here is close all, new, fresh. I say keep it. What's the answer here? Do I keep it? Do I undo it? It's already gone.
It's always blue.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Oh, look. See, look. It's back. So I undid, but it brings it back. It's like a negative plus a negative is a positive.
Hey Lee, have you seen any generation tools that can take a screenshot or a screen mock-up and
Yes.
generate spec like
Spec.
Go.
Well, yeah, I would say ChatGPT could probably do it for you right off the cuff.
Something a little bit more
Well, the accuracy comes from your prompt. So you would say, take this, and then you'd give it a whole bunch of instructions exactly how you'd like to extract them. The real question is, do you want to stack that in a repeatable way?
yeah,
Maybe you could create an agent in GitHub Copilot.
good.
Yeah, there probably is a tool, but they're just wrappers on the same thing.
Yeah.
All right, so for this repo and for this repo, all I've done is I've installed SpecKit, and all it really does is there's a few extra bits in here, so I'll run through it quickly. So this is not my repo. I'm not selling it. I'll just show you briefly how it works if you're interested in it. There's a few extra prompts. Actually, this is interesting for GitHub Copilot. Instead of agents, these are prompts. So if you put stuff in a prompts folder, and here they've got specify, plan, and tasks is what they came up with. And if you remember my diagram earlier, I put it in text right at the top. It's actually exactly the same thing. And there's a few other bits in there. There's a thing called memory, and they've called it a constitution. And a constitution is essentially all your technical rules, all the things that you want to be true. I've probably way overbaked this constitution, to be honest. When I look at a few, there are very limited examples I can find on the internet. They are much smaller than this one, but we're still learning. But all the tech stuff is in there. The requirements is the same. There's a few scripts that it gives you. For the most part, it's their like validation scripts and things like that. You can obviously see it. The cool thing, there's no black magic with this. You can see exactly what it's going to do and how it's working, so you can modify it. And I think
that's not the requirements again.
So we'll start it again. Background update. Specs is empty. Scripts is a few scripts. So the way you use it, and so you remember these prompts in here. If you go /specify, It's basically a super shortcut to run any one of your prompts in the prompts folder. So for your example, if you're going to create a gherkinerizer from images, you could create a gherkin prompt, save it in there, and then you can drop your image and then you're done. If I say specify over here, just add the context, make sure it's in the context. I'm not going to say much here. I'm just going to say specify this. Now, the first thing it's going to do is going to read the prompt. The prompt is going to say, hey, I want to run this script. And what the script does is probably what I should have done in the first place. Is it's going to, every time you run specify, essentially it's saying, hey, you're going to create a new feature. So first part of creating a new feature is creating a branch. So the first thing it's hopefully going to do is go and create a branch for me, and it'll make all the changes in the branch. And then it'll detail out the requirements for the user story that I've got. But it'll do a few things a little bit different that I didn't think of doing in the first place. Let's see. Oh, I did modify this ever so slightly. You can see step 25 is to review the system context. So I modified the specify prompt to read my context file. Slightly better results. Okay, it's going to go execute a script. It's good. You should read that before you click continue. Oh, yeah, that's a bug. You have to click it twice. But that's the branch. You'll see right away it's created a branch. Update user API branch. Everything is neatly in a nice little branch. It's not always what we tell people to do. Step 3 of 5. I'll probably just kick off the code and then I'll probably stop with the actual code generation for this one. It is really thorough. Like if you thought my one was thorough in terms of the number of things it's done, this one, because of the size of the constitution and it's the way these prompts are particularly set up, it's for test-driven development. So that's coming back again as well. So it's all new again. So for the not the constitution, for the spec, so it's created a spec file. Let's do it in here. So there's my user story. Nice, wonderful text. Again, it's put acceptance criteria in there. But you'll notice some stuff in here. Well, I think it'll be in there. It's come up with edge cases to say, hey, what happens if the user ID is not in a valid Go format? What do you want to do in that situation? What about this? What about that? And these are prompts for you to go have a human conversation with a real person to try and find out what these answers are. Get it to open in an visualizer. It's created a bunch of FRs, functional requirements, and there's something else in here which I think is quite good. So checklists. Can't spot any right now. You're just gonna have to trust me when I explain to you what it is. When it does all these acceptance criteria and edge cases, one of the things it'll do if it's not sure, it'll put in big bold letters, or please clarify this requirement, and it'll put a question in. So it's like also a trigger to say, hey, I'm not quite sure about this. So in the actual user prompt, when you prompt it, it says, if you're not sure, put this text in, which is actually quite a good prompting engineering hack. Different models behave differently to that sort of thing. And in this case, obviously, Sonnet 4 is like, yeah, I'm not sure.
Are there any on AI setting rules for the team to be shared? Like, you have the system context.
Yes.
It might be able to be shared with your teammates so that they can follow the same rules. Because my team uses cloud code, and we have some set rules to tell the cloud to do something like you can do an npm link for you create any file or some command to be executed and some to be denied. I just wonder if there's any settings to be shared.
Yeah, 100%. So in both the examples that I did, the first example and this example, the guidance here is all of those system context files and prompts and everything are part of the repo. So everybody gets them. So if you tweak, if your AI is giving you problems and you change all of the prompts, you change them directly in these files, and then everybody gets that magic right away. So yeah, good question. Yeah, so there's a bunch of elaboration, edge cases in here, etc. The next step and I'm probably not even going to bother. Their language is slightly different. So instead of the word detailed design, they call it a plan, which is a bit weird, but you know, it's okay. I'm going to say plan. I'm just going to blindly keep stuff as well, so that's okay. Plan this. Again, my prompts are like incredibly short. In here, what I didn't do is I didn't elaborate the edge cases. Like that's Michael's job. That's this will go off and essentially create it'll run the plan script first because we ask it to, and it'll create like a very, very, very elaborate plan around exactly what tech choices in there. If you look at there are templates. I didn't mention the templates. There are these templates as well, and you can adapt them to your particular use case. And the default ones are like incredibly specific. The other thing, just around test-driven development again, the plans and the task, which is the next step, it kind of insists on. It's got lots of prompts in there to say, absolutely do not write any code until you've written all of the tests. So that is like littered through the whole thing. So when it does the execution, it writes a whole bunch of tests and they all fail. And then it says, okay, now you can actually go and write all the bits. So it's, you know, how long ago were we doing TDD? It's like, what's we know? We probably didn't like it, but if AI is doing it, maybe it's okay.
It's okay. Maybe. The amount that it hallucinates, so maybe it's writing the wrong test.
Well, the good thing about running the test first, if you've got really good requirements, is running the test based on the requirements, not trying to look at your code and then say, figure out, oh, you've got a function that does this one thing. Let's test this function, but that's useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How well is this AI like coping with non-functional requirements? Like, are they creating tests for security measures, performance measures?
Oh, well, it's not necessarily the AI that's doing all of those things. It's the quality of your templates. So if you want your plan to have those in it, you would inject them into that. The default one has got a few non-functionals that I saw in there, but not very many. Not very many. But you can absolutely do all of that wonderful stuff. That is executing. While that's thinking, I'll jump to the slide and just to nudge my thoughts around some of the wonderful. Let's see if it's going to finish. 3 steps left. All right, hold on before I jump to my slide. I'll kick off the next one and then jump to my slide around anything I may have missed. Any other thoughts?
Question, what are your suggestions for an existing code base? Like, you want to add a feature or you want to make change?
Yes. If you would use this workflow, the number one thing you would do is choose to go and create. Let's put it this way. If I was a developer joining your team and you were to explain to me how to add that feature, that context around what tech stack I need to use, make sure your controller files are over there, don't do this or you have that, you would document that. I know we don't. We like throw new developers into a team and we expect to figure it out over a period of weeks. This is a really good point, a really good thing to say, hey, actually going to create all of those files so that people can pick up your code base really, really quickly. That content is what we need to create. Now, you don't need to create it from scratch, because if you've got a brownfield application that's got 100 APIs in there, you can get the AI to go figure that stuff out for you and then you review it. So you could go and ask it some really, really key questions.
Pretty good job at that. That's where it does actually do a pretty good job. Like figuring out what's going on.
Yeah.
Writing some sort of instructions. It's not bad.
Yeah. So you would create that first, which is all of the rules. That would be your that's essentially your tech.
Constitution.
That's your constitution file. So you're done. Then the second part, brownfield, you're still going to have requirements in your feature file. So that's still always going to be the same in green or brown. And the rest is the same.
But then you would have to send your tech code base to.
I mean,
part of the context.
most of the time you don't have requirements, right? Like, let's be real. Like,
yes.
Sorry, when you're going into a brownfield solution, you're going to make a change. You may have a requirement to change, but there's nothing for all of the code that's already written.
That's right, but you don't necessarily need to give the agent all of the code, because when you run through the steps, The agent, if it sees if in your requirements or your spec, it says, extend how this works. The first thing the agent is going to do is go try and figure out or have a look at it. Because it's agentic, it's going to go try and give itself prompts and tools. It's going to look through your code base, especially if you've given it some context around where things are. It's like how would a human do it? Like they would.
So it's using that code to reverse engineer what it needs to forward.
That's it. Yeah. The plan, once you get to the plan and the tasks, when you've generated it, it's already done all the thinking around exactly where to look and where to make the changes. To the point earlier around the 1.7 hours or whatever pieces, each of those tasks is essentially quite small, and it's able to do them reasonably well because you've chunked it down. The gentleman at the end said, if you were to chunk it down, does it work better? Well, yeah, this is exactly what this is.
Is this all one context window, Lee?
Good point. In this case, I just did it all in one context window. What happens eventually? It does run out, and you'll see a little thing pop up that says summarizing chat. If you see that, the quality of your results are going to start dropping significantly. You may want to start again.
That also works if you're doing agentic workflows. Like sometimes you just say, okay, that part's done, summarize it, bring it back to the controller. Like you don't need the whole thing, just enough the context in the controller says, okay, thumbs up, thumbs down, or
With Claude, it's a command to basically say /concat to summarize it. Okay, so far.
Yeah, that's good. I wish they had a button on top to do exactly that here. This tiny little window keeps prompting me to continue, which is really annoying. Yeah, this is in beta, so you can't even change the damn size of it. Anyway, that will definitely work. Essentially, it's created I can show you the plan document. It's created a very, very elaborate plan, ignoring the top part because that's part of the template. This essentially is the technical context. Hey, use .NET 9, ASP Core, blah, these are the frameworks. Some performance stuff in there for the question before. Put some of the gates. Kind of see the some of the bits in here. You can definitely red, green, refactor cycle, observability, versioning. Like I said, you can go to town on this stuff and create super, super detailed specs for exactly what you want. Planning approach. You're essentially creating in here. There's the broad steps of how you would approach making this change as well. Complexity tracking. I don't know. This is very new. They are seeking some feedback on it. My feedback is maybe have some simpler examples. Anyway, it's finished everything. It's done all the bits. Then the wonderful next step is, before I jump out of this, is you run the last one, which is, actually, there's not even the last step. You do tasks. Give it anything here. And the task template. Template for tasks, yes, there is. The task template that'll run, it'll break things into these wonderful things, TDO1, task number 1, task number 2. Break it up into very, very small bits. And then it'll carry on. So that's essentially spec kits and spec-driven development. Some closing thoughts. Most of these things I think I would have already spoken about. Context is king. I must have said that a lot of times around the context. We touched on this a little bit before. The shift to this isn't about the tool and the tech necessarily. There's the people and the process that we need to think about as well. I over-indexed on the process side of things today. Think about the size of the task. Things need to be reasonably small, chunk them down into smaller bits so that they can be done successfully. This is the paradigm shift that we're seeing around the code itself. Is the value there anymore? If you can just generate it reasonably simply, or is the value to the left towards the actual requirements that you don't have? So from a developer workflow perspective, we're going to spend more time specifying, more time reviewing. This isn't always as fun as actually developing. It can be fatiguing. So that is something. Being able to communicate and speak English is quite an important thing. I suppose you could do this in another language. I'm not trying it. And the last point is around the generated code. How do you know that the code is generated is correct if you don't understand the code? Like if it's, doing something weird and wonderful, do you just accept it and blindly accept it? I say no. That's a wonderful learning opportunity. If it generates something that you do not understand what it's doing, you need to, as a mindset, like the best thing you can do is pause. You've got time because you're waiting for the damn thing to generate. Spin up another window, do some research on it, figure out what it is. We've got at our fingertips, we have this personal, patient, non-judgmental tutor called Microsoft CoPilot. And you can ask it all sorts of stupid questions and it will calmly give you the answer. That's what you need to be doing in the time when you're watching this code. And if you do that, your skills will accelerate faster. Because what's happening, sorry, this is a confusing diagram. That kind of, the blue line at the bottom is like, hey, this is normally, if you're into projects, your skill will improve. If you're using AI because you're generating all of this stuff that you may not have seen, it will exceed your ability at some point. Now, you could choose to just let it exceed your ability and like to do pull requests, Derby Dragons, because you're still accountable for all the code. You need to know what it's doing. However, if you keep up with it and you learn, it'll accelerate your learning all the way to the top. That is me. It's true. Thank you.
Anyway, that's
Question.
No time for questions, I'm sorry.
before we do the questions. But yeah, thanks. You pulled in a record crowd for this year, so that's great. Thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you.
And everybody who does come regularly knows that we really appreciate our speakers.
Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate it. Yes.
So you spoke about the developer process, but let's just say you have a team of the business analysts, multiple business analysts in there, and they're more focused on the requirements. Now sharing documents around, are the BAs now doing markdown documents checked into,
Yes, please.
and then getting the client feedback on those documents?
Well, unless you want to copy paste between them, then I would say that's an amazing, like that'd be awesome. Yes. Yeah. And then you don't have to do anything. Your job's done. You can just you just press go on GitHub CoPilot. Yeah.
You're moving. Sorry. Make my job easier when developers are much of a different moment they are. And part about the developer experience kind of get worse. Sort of your second last talk on the slide. How do we sort of keep everyone engaged in every job? If you're taking away the complex problem solving and shifting it some process.
Yeah, it's a good question. It does come up. I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answer. I don't have the full answer. I've got a partial answer, if that's okay. I think there's different types of people in this world, if you like, and there's different reasons why people get into software development. Some people get into software development because they like to write code, like the actual art of writing the code is the thing that drives them. The other people that get into software development are the people that like to solve problems. They're actually really intrigued by, hey, I need to crack this nut. Those people they're completely fine with it. If you're into software development to write code, then AI is not necessarily for you. Then you just just delete GitHub CoPilot. You'll be fine. Sorry, it's a bad answer, but
From those going off the question before, how do we get non-technical people, business analysts, business product owners and whatnot, and getting into likes of VS Code and getting familiar with that interface and all the same environment?
Get them out.
Documents and SharePoint like things.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like Nathan has developed a wonderful tool at Deloitte called Fuser, and it's essentially aimed at some of the pre-development activities around, creating test cases and elaborating documents requirements, and all of it. It lets you do that. However, it's built in Visual Studio Code, And our number one challenge that we have when we like try to roll it out to users is Visual Studio Code is like painful. I don't understand what all these things are. But then we do have users that we could refer, like we point to, that they've figured it out. It's not, like you say, it's not that hard. It is another tool. There is a bit of a change involved if you were to stick to that tool. No doubt. I mean, I've just showed you like a particular method today, September. If this were to be the way, and it's probably part of the solution, it's not the solution, there'll be other tools which are maybe simple, like web versions of what we just saw. So I reckon those are coming. Maybe there's a business opportunity right there. That one's free.
Charge for
Yeah, charge for the other.
advantages to having some interconnectivity between, I guess, not least because, as you mentioned, you develop. Sometimes drifts from the requirements. Sometimes that's okay because you're defining you're codifying a discussion that don't like. Other times you just go off the path of it. And having that being synced up means that you could do it in reverse. Say, okay, so this is the code and there's a pull request. Does that affect any of these requirements? Like materially affect what the requirements were set? And then similarly, you can say, okay, so we've got an MCP into Jira. Someone's added this question. We look in the requirements and see whether that addresses it. Also, this PA loves to put the requirements in the Jira and it's this long. Can we just, every time this changes, sync it with Jira and back? There's so much you can do. You don't have to bring them all the way. If they want to keep on it in Jira, that's fine. Just turn it into Markdown. Just
abstract a little bit where they come.
Yeah. And if they don't want to specify it to that set level, then you put something in the middle to elaborate and then put it in.
One of the wonderful experiments you're running at the moment at Deloitte is to run the software development lifecycle through Azure DevOps. So you put all your requirements and everything in Azure DevOps, and then you have tickets. And when you move the ticket over to like the next step, which is like specify or whatever those steps are, it underneath the covers, it kicks off the agent, does all the work. So you don't need to sit and wait. And when it's finished, it'll move the ticket over to done, as if a human was doing it. Obviously, it's not a human; it's an agent. And the cool thing about that, you can have lots of people doing all the stuff, and you're driving your project through Azure DevOps as your interface, not Visual Studio Code. Yeah, if you want to use that on your project, hit me up. We need more beta testers. Yesterday? No, it was the thing. You need a tool to like track all of the stuff that's going on. So it doesn't have to be Azure DevOps, but you need something. Work tracking tool. It is. What do you use? How do you plan your day?
Microsoft Plan would be a good one.
Yeah, there you go.
I can also share some changes of code review because my team just moved from Bitbucket to GitHub, and we're using GitHub CoPilot for code review. And if there's anything similar happening to your team, because I think maybe using AI for code review will also be a very great enhancement for developers. We can improve our efficiency and something like that.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like there are some built-in things right now for GitHub Microsoft GitHub for code review. It's a good point. We use it, I think, on a few things. I've seen it here and there. It's in my head. I go, who's reviewing the reviewers? Like, where do you stop? I do think it does come up with some. The way I've seen it used well is you've still got a human reviewer, but you've got the AI reviewer first. And it's essentially checking some of the obvious stuff, like, does it compile? Does does it have all these bits in it first?
I approve the pull request.
Oh, the pull request. Yeah, but there's other checks you can do. Yeah, bad example. Yeah. So that by the time you get it as a human, all the things that you would have normally checked have actually been done. Then you can just your reviews are quicker. So yeah, it's a good.
About the refactor, like from the legacy code base, is there any requirement or like in your team you use this specific practice?
Yeah, legacy code bases, like we get that a lot. Like, you know, that's one of the, like half of the customers that call us, they've got like old cranky, you know, AS400, CAGen, whatever you name it, like legacy code bases. I think this workflow is the same that I just showed, but the extracting the requirements instead of there being humans, you essentially have to look at the code. But the problem, as you saw, the code is it's lossy. As in you used to have really rich requirements that were documented at some point in people's heads, you know, 20 years ago, and then they created some code. There's a lot of inference that's missing. You could definitely look at the code. You can use tools to infer what was there. It's not going to be correct 100%. It's going to be 80% correct. That's problem number one. And number two, when you're looking at the code, as you saw from the diagram, it's already meshed in requirements and tech all into one thing. So when you're trying to extract it out with AI, your prompts have to essentially, you know, you're asking AI, you're begging AI, please ignore the technicalities of this. You know, you're going to have weird requirements where you're inserting into a database and then pulling out of a database and doing all of these things. Where's the business requirement in that? So yes, it definitely helps, but it's probably like maybe 60-70% effective, and then you've got to review the crap out of it. And then once you've got all of those requirements that have been validated, you chunk them up, and then through the machine you can generate again.
There's like the sum total of delivering a feature. Are we not just moving that effort around to to different people in different parts of the
As long as we don't have to do it.
But we still get paid.
Yeah, because we're validating, so it's a critical job.
You should have always had the good one. It's like, that's me off a lot of it sometimes. It's like,
Yeah.
I think it is like any bad Scrum implementation, for example, see the stories of the describe it, really try and test it. Really just test it.
You hit UAT and then you have a defect because it's like, oh, this is wrong, and then you go, well, that's not wrong. You have a requirements defect. You didn't tell us to do that. How expensive is that?
Exactly. So you find it early.
You find it earlier. But also, you're having the AI help you with the requirements. I think the very fact that you're able to use AI to kind of try and infer some of your requirements and then find bits that say is unclear and have a look at edge cases, it's helping you think through the requirements.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of pushback further up the chain, which kind of makes you think about, okay, what am I actually asking for here in terms of requirements and what the output is.
I think, yeah, the technical BAs and the BA's job has always been hard, and there's not enough people that are good at that job. I think they should get more money.
But they tend to end up with their own templates anyway. They plug in, so
Yep.
like workflow, well, it's not super foreign to them, I guess.
Mhm.
This is like template or something that they need for their examining.
Yep.
10% similar and 10% super important. But there is that.
Yeah, I mean, I do empathize with asking some of the requirement if they're not quite sure. It's like, I need to see it first, you know. So I think there's other techniques and tools that you know, good BAs use to try and elicit requirements really well. Like they might do mock-ups and designs and show them, or there's like flow diagrams, and there's all these kind of tools. They become important. Well, they are always important if we're trying to get high quality requirements. You know, you need a high quality.
That's always the reality, right? Like in 99% of the cases, you have to build it. They have to use it.
Yeah.
And then we'll finally identify what do we actually need here.
Yeah.
We may have idea A, but it's always going to be idea C or D or.
Yeah, you want to get it as close as possible the first time around.
Minimizing the noise.
You want to minimize it. You're at with this paradigm, I guess. If it's and this is yet to be proven properly in practice. Here's the theory: if you generate your application and it's got issues in it because they use the requirements, you should be going back to the spec, fixing the spec, which I'd be doing, right? And then regenerating your code again.
I'm still skeptical.
That's good.
It's a great idea. It's a great hypothesis.
Well, it reminds me of the old, you know, if you, this is fun, but if you've got a WCF service, you got your web build, you generate the client for it, and then you end up with this file in your project with comments at the top and the bottom saying, okay, this is generated code. Do not update this code. It's going to get regenerated and overwritten again. And
Yeah. I've had that. I don't know. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of languages like that.
Generated with AI. And
That's right.
or maybe even older that you know no humans go there.
None of these concepts today are wonderfully new. We're just going back. We're going regurgitating.
Taking on someone mentioned non-functional requirements, but probably talking about the requirements in general, and it may be under your constitution, the patterns and practice.
Yep.
So let's say you have a number of templates, but you've got either requirements for secure by design or require secure by design put into your patterns and practices and so on. Is it able to potentially bubble up a conflict of requirements? So the secure by design has a certain way of authentication, and then the business has, you know, anonymous access to get to the front screen or something like that. Is there?
Yeah, I mean, it's I wouldn't say it's infallible. Like nothing here is infallible, but you could definitely add that into your prompts to say if something conflicts, add it into the section. You could add a template section. You could say put conflicts here. I would say by default it would be an interesting test to see what comes up.
Yeah, that sounds just like if there were coding standards that say that needs to be agreed to for organisational practice, that might then become kind of part of the policy that would be the context, the context that things need to be done. So
but Ray's question is a bit different. He's like saying, "Cool, you've got a constitution here, but a user requirements come through which breaks the constitution. Like, what do you do? Like when you're just designing it, which one's it gonna take? It'll have a conflict, and how do you then?"
The example you gave where it says I'm not clear or you alluded to, I was hoping you might bubble up in something like that.
I reckon.
You specify like say like never break the security requirement. Like
Yeah, again, that's potentially I'm wondering if that's an added requirement that you have with every project or becomes part of your constitution. And I don't know if it's conveyed like that, because I thought the requirements would be bits where it would just absorb I call it the patterns and practices. Or,
Well, the third document that you mentioned is you've got your requirements, so you've got the constitution. The third document is essentially your instructions that you're giving the AI. Like, these are the steps I want you to follow. So you could have a step right at the front to say, check for conflicting bits.
That would come out like when you were using SpecKit that had questions bit where, hey, you've got this thing in your design. Is that really what you want?
Yeah, exactly. I reckon 80% sure it would work. Yeah. Anyway.
Very good. Thank you.
I'd like to thank